If every conversation leaves you more confused than before, you're not crazy. That's not normal relationship friction. Healthy relationships don't make clarity disappear the more you try to communicate. So if every conversation leaves you more disoriented, that's not your fault. That's information about the dynamic that you're in. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why and why your confusion is not a flaw, it's a signal. You're not confused because you're broken. You're confused because something in this dynamic is not safe or aligned. Let me describe what I mean by confused. Because I'm not talking about normal misunderstandings or normal confusion. I'm talking about chronic disorientation, the kind where you're rereading text messages, replaying conversations in your head, trying to remember what was said versus what it somehow turned into later, wondering why you feel guilty when you didn't even do anything wrong. And the loop usually sounds like this. Maybe I explained it wrong. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm the problem. So if that's you, I want to stop that pattern of self-blame right now, because chronic confusion usually shows up when one person is trying to understand, repair, and be accountable, and the other person is not. If you're working towards clarity and they're working towards avoidance, blame, or deflection, confusion becomes your default in this relationship. That's not weakness. That's what happens when you're trying to build a genuine relationship inside of a dynamic that can't hold genuine connection. Now, to be clear, healthy relationships still have conflict. They still have hurt feelings. They still have misunderstandings. You can even feel confused in the moment. The difference isn't whether conflict exists, it's the direction that it moves. In a safe, healthy dynamic, even uncomfortable conversations move towards clarity over time. Both people care about how the other one feels. Both people want to understand what happened. Both people are invested in repair. That means you can say, I'm confused, and you're met with curiosity, not defensiveness. You can ask a question and get an answer instead of a spiral. You can have emotions without losing your grip on reality. You don't have to fight to be understood. Here's the distinction that matters. You can feel hurt or upset in a healthy relationship and still feel clear. But when something isn't healthy, you don't just feel pain, you feel lost. It's not, wow, that was a hard conversation. It's, why do I suddenly doubt things that I was so sure about before? Why do I feel like I'm the problem just for bringing this up? Why is this so confusing? Why does nothing work no matter how hard I try? And why do I feel hopeless? In unhealthy dynamics, conversations don't move towards repair. They move towards deflection, blame, denial, or subtle shifts that put the focus back onto you. And over time, that has an effect. Instead of leaving a conversation clearer, you leave monitoring yourself, questioning your tone, questioning your memory, questioning your reality, questioning yourself. So if you notice that clarity consistently decreases after you speak to someone, that's important information. Not traumatic, not always obvious, just destabilizing. That kind of confusion isn't random. It trains you to doubt yourself instead of noticing them or the pattern. Why you get confused. Now, here's the part most people have never been told. The reason this dynamic is so confusing to you is because you're doing what people with integrity and natural common basic human decency naturally do. You assume good faith. You self-reflect. You care about your impact. You want repair. You actually want to understand what's true, not just to be right. So when something doesn't make sense, you don't immediately think this person is unsafe. You think, what am I missing? What could I do better? How can I explain things more clearly? Because you're assuming that they're doing the same as you, that they're playing the same game as you are. But here's the core frame I really want you to hear. You are confused because you are applying empathy, integrity, and accountability to a system and relationship that doesn't operate on those same values. And that is inherently confusing. Because to you, this is obvious. It's common sense. Of course we talk things through. Of course we clarify. Of course we care about each other's feelings. Of course we take responsibility. Of course we care if we hurt somebody. So when someone doesn't operate like that, your brain keeps trying to make it make sense. You believe that other people have the same humanity that you do, because you do. So you try harder, you explain more, you take on more responsibility, and somehow it makes less sense. That's not because you're failing. It's because the rules are shifting and you're still trying to play fair, yet the playing field is completely uneven. How self-doubt gets installed. Over time, this creates a very specific loop. You notice something feels off, you bring it up carefully, the response doesn't match what you actually said, and somehow you end up explaining yourself instead of the issue. Eventually, you stop trusting your own perception and you start asking, am I overreacting? Did I misunderstand? Am I being too sensitive? Maybe I'm the problem. Now, I know this pattern on a very personal level. There was a time in my life when I genuinely thought something was wrong with me because the other person seemed so confident, so certain, and when I tried to talk, repair, or ask questions, they had all the right words to say, and I was the one always walking away confused, feeling stupid, emotional, and not good enough. And my turning point was realizing, oh, this is not a me problem. This is a values mismatch. I was trying to build a mutual understanding and deep connection with someone who wasn't committed to that same goal. And once I really, really saw that, the shame started to fall away and I became clear. Now let's talk about the uncomfortable part. Confusion isn't just painful. Confusion creates a power imbalance. And I wanted to find control in a way that actually helps you see it. Control doesn't always look aggressive. It doesn't always involve yelling or threats. Often, control works through uncertainty. And an unhealthy dynamic, they want you to stay confused. Because a clear person can decide. A clear person can say, no, that doesn't work for me. This is not an integrity. This is what happened. This is what I feel. This is what I need. And I can stand firmly in that because I'm clear. But a confused person hesitates. A confused person keeps searching for the missing piece. A confused person keeps focusing inward. What should I say or do differently? How can I explain it better? How can I get them to understand? And while you're busy doing that, you're not tracking them. You're not tracking the pattern. You're tracking yourself. And that's the effect confusion has. It pulls all of your attention inward, away from what's actually happening between you and the other person. When you're confused, you're focused on fixing yourself, not noticing what they're doing or not doing. Because clarity would completely change the dynamic. Clarity would make their lack of care, their lack of curiosity, very visible. Clarity would reveal where their accountability drops. Clarity would show that repair never actually happens. Clarity would make the unhealthy pattern impossible to ignore. So whether it's intentional or not, chronic confusion keeps the power uneven. Because the more you doubt yourself, the less you trust your own feelings. And when you don't trust your own feelings, the dynamic doesn't change. So here's the reframe you can take with you. Your next step is not to diagnose this person. It's not to label the relationship. It's not to figure out what you're supposed to do next. Right now, your only job is to notice what happens to your clarity when you engage with them. That's it. Pay attention to how do you feel before the conversation? What happens during that conversation? And how do you feel afterwards? Do you feel clearer or more confused and more foggy? Do you feel more grounded or more unsure of yourself? And then zoom out. Instead of immediately turning inward, instead of analyzing your tone, your words, your actions, your delivery, start noticing them, their responses, their patterns. What happens when you ask a direct question? What happens when you say you're confused? What happens when you name an impact? Do they move towards clarity or do they move away from it? Do they get curious or do they get defensive? Do conversations resolve and repair or reset back to zero or negative. This is the shift that changes everything. Stop using your energy to figure out what's wrong with you and start noticing what consistently happens with them and between you. Because confusion isn't something you need to fix, it's something you need to observe and understand. Because once you start watching the pattern instead of monitoring yourself, clarity begins to return naturally. Your confusion is not a weakness, it's intelligence. It's your internal radar saying something here does not align with my values. And your job is not to make sense of people who don't play by the same rules. Your job is to recognize the mismatch and misalignment. Because in a healthy relationship, your clarity would be welcomed, not punished. And here's the part most people miss. When confusion keeps happening, your body starts responding before your mind does. In the next video, I'll explain why so many people freeze or go blank and what that reaction tells you about the dynamic that you're in. So watch that next. It will make this entire pattern click.